Well, hello. Nice to see you back again. Now, I assume that you're here because you either listened to my first two YouTubes or read my blogs about my latest book. It's all upside down. Here it is again. Can you see that? In my last YouTube and blog, I talked about why I focus on principles in part one of the book. And in this YouTube and blog, I'm going to focus on why I decided to include a part two in the book and what's in part two. So let's get started. Besides highlighting 26 upside down principles in part one, I also highlight 18 coaching tips. Now, if you're wondering if a book that highlights coaching tips is for you, it is. I believe everyone in an organization should view themselves as a coach. But the challenge many organizations have is how to communicate the right coaching tips that are needed to people on the projects when those tips are needed. Now, let me step back for a moment here, tell you a little bit about my background. I've been in this business, software development business, for over 40 years. The first 20 years, I was a developer and a project manager, a technical lead. The last 20 years, I've been an independent consultant and coach. And it's been in that second role, primarily as an independent coach, where often I'm called in to help on troubled projects. Now, one observation I have made, I've written about this and blogged about it in the past, is that most of those troubled projects fall into one or more of a surprisingly small number of common patterns. But more importantly, what we've observed is that when those patterns, or those particular patterns that the trouble project has, are detected in a timely manner, it's usually not that difficult to get the project back steered properly onto the right course. But this now leads to an interesting question. What if we could capture those common patterns and share them with coaches everywhere so that they could steer their teams when needed to keep them on course? This was my motivator for including a part two in my book, where I frame the principles and the coaching tips that have emerged from my stories in part one using a framework called Essence. Now, if you haven't heard of Essence yet, you've probably heard of the foundation from which it evolved, which I also talk about in part two of the book. I also explain in part two how Essence provides a simple, easy to use medium to communicate any organization's practices, principles, tips, even checklists. And actually, checklist is a very important part of it that I talk about both in part one and part two. And it communicates those even among non-technical stakeholders. And this last point is particularly important because when you read part one of the book, you learn how stakeholder issues associated with responsibilities and knowing how to carry out those responsibilities is a key repeating theme in many of my stories. But more importantly, it's a key repeating theme that we see in those patterns I talked about on troubled projects. Now, in my next blog and YouTube, I'm going to share with you a personal story about troubled projects that I think will help you understand a key value of Essence that it actually took me quite a while to comprehend and appreciate. Hey, thanks again for stopping by. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you got something out of it, and have a great day.